On today's live daily news, a crash on US 67 near Miles slowed someone's move. Angelo State University is gearing up for Christmas, and a suspect has been arrested for a murder in Santa Rita. We've got details. Plus, Gus Clemens joins Joe Hyde to talk about Thanksgiving. All this plus more. I'm Yantis Green, and this is Live. But first, Myers Drug and Boutique is having an annual Christmas sale this week. Today is the best day to shop for the kiddos with the buy one, get one free deal on all toys and leggings. While leggings of all sizes and toys of all kinds, this is the best time to get stocking stuffers. Doors will be closed on Thanksgiving Day, but open on Black Friday when they'll have a tote sale. Get a free tote to fill up with anything in the store and get 30% off of what's in the tote. That's right, the whole store is basically 30% off. Go see them today at the center of downtown San Angelo at the corner of Beauregard and Chadbourn. That's Myers Drug and Boutique at Beauregard and Chadbourn downtown. Just before noon on Wednesday, a two-vehicle crash shut down multiple lanes of U.S. Highway 67 near the Hudson Livestock Supplement Company near Miles. The crash involved two box trucks. One was not marked, but the other was a U-Haul truck filled with furniture. That's one way to mess up a move. In the other truck, at least one person was taken to the hospital. It is unknown the extent of their injuries. For more on that crash, check out the article and the video on sanangelolive.com. And just after the show aired yesterday, the San Angelo Police Department sent out a message informing the public that a suspect had been arrested for a murder in San Angelo in early November. Information obtained by San Angelo Live revealed that a woman was killed. The woman was identified as Christy Phelan of San Angelo, who was murdered in the 1200 block of West Avenue M in the heart of Santa Rita. Phelan was a mother of three who worked as a hairstylist at the Southside Cuts. Little is known about the murder itself, but we have inquired about that information. We will likely have more information once county offices reopen on Friday. In brighter news, the holiday season is here. Tomorrow may be Thanksgiving, but at Angelo State University, officials have their eyes set on Christmas. This coming Tuesday, the annual Christmas tree lighting will be held at 6:30 in the evening on the ASU campus. Other activities include the Holiday Pops concert by the ASU Symphony Orchestra and Chorale, synthetic ice skating rink, inflatable bounce houses, Christmas ornament decoration station, and, of course, hot chocolate and cookies. But looking at the weather, the hot cocoa is going to be more needed the next few days rather than on Tuesday. For Thanksgiving, temperatures are going to be in the 60s during the day, but once night falls, it's going to cool down rapidly and the winter weather will hit. This will move in on Friday. Friday afternoon, the temperatures won't get above 50 degrees and there is a chance of rain throughout the day. In the surrounding area, the weather is going to be bad as well, and because of that, the Erie County football playoff game has been moved. For more on that, here's Cover One analyst James Bellini.
While 11-man is 3 games away from making the trip to Jerry World, at the 6-man level, they've got 2 games, and Erie County has a very good chance at making the 4-hour trip to Arlington. This season, the Hornets have been playing with a purpose, staying perfect so far. Their closest game during the regular season came in Week 1 against Buena Vista, 80-60. The Hornets then went on to 45 everybody else they played in the regular season. Once they got to the playoffs, they took on a team that had been to state the 2 previous years, the May Tigers. They beat May 104-91. Last week, the Hornets played the Lakey Eagles for the second time in Sonora and had the same result as they did in Week 5, this time beating them 52-0. This week, they play another set of Eagles from Jonesboro, who are 12-1, losing to only the Westbrook Wildcats early on in the season. They beat Menard Medina so far in the playoffs, and these two actually have a common opponent in May. The Hornets put up 100 points on the Tigers, and the Eagles beat May 65-40. The Hornets take on the Eagles this Saturday after an update that was just released today, but the battleground is still going to be in early Texas. Cover 1 will be there, so watch this Saturday for game updates. We'll still be covering games on Friday, even though the weather is supposed to be bad. So if you can't make it out to a game or can't get away from the in-laws this weekend, tune into Cover 1 for exclusive coaches interviews, score updates, highlights, and more at around 4, 8, and 10 o'clock, only on SanJoeLive.com.
When it comes to unique pieces you can't find anywhere else, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is your one-stop shop. With over 24 years in the diamond and coin industry, Kano's Diamonds and Coins is West Texas's choice for diamonds, jewelry, coins, silver, and gold. Owner Bill Kano stands by his work and offers free consultations, including estate jewelry. Don't just trust anyone with your valuables. Come see the staff at Kano's at 1016 West Beauregard in San Angelo.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Joe Hyde, and with me today for our special Thanksgiving show, I have the one, the only Gus Clemens.
Well, actually, there's more than one Gus Clemens, but that's another story.
Well, there's only one that's you. Now, to give you a little introduction of Gus Clemens, Gus is what we used to call in our daily missives the senior sage of San Angelo politics. He for many years ran an agency, the Clemens Agency, advertising agency that handled a lot of campaigns, including for Judge Walter and Judge Steve Floyd,
Penny Roberts,
Sheriff Hanna. I mean, you can go back through the years, and you probably run a campaign. And
Rob Janelle, Drew Darby, and then a bunch of them that didn't win. So
you don't want to count those. You know, when you lose, when these candidates, these nasty little candidates that lose, you don't even know who they were after 6 months after they ran. You just forget about them.
Well, that's not my experience. My experience is when you do a campaign with somebody, they become close friends for the rest of your life.
Even the ones that lose?
Well, several of them were grateful that they lost once they saw what happened to the people that won.
Well, you follow politics, but you're also a historian. And this is a book you wrote many years ago, Concho Country. We use it a lot in our reporting when we want to know the backstory on a building, the backstory on. I think it's really interesting that there's a whole section on here about the Battle of Dove Creek.
Dove Creek,
yes. Yes, but you did a lot of research on this area, so you know the people, you know where it came from, you know the fabric of San Angelo.
I like to pretend that I do, yes.
So, with that kind of depth of knowledge, how are we doing today? For example, we hear a lot of criticism of current politicians. So you always hear criticism of Brenda Gunner, Mayor Brenda Gunner. How do you think she's doing?
I think she's doing. I've known a lot of mayors.
Right.
Literally, I live on Nasworthy Drive,
which is over by ASU.
ASU. Yeah. Parents bought the house in '53. I still live there, and M.D. Bryant's house is just down the street, and
M.D. Bryant is who Bryant Boulevard's named after.
Yeah, and Bryant Park Addition, which is where I live.
Right.
And Allie T. Hughes was mayor. He lived literally across the street. So growing up as a little kid, I thought if you wanted to be mayor of San Angelo, you had to live on Nasworthy Drive. And my first experiences as a little kid, I'm talking about 8, 9, 10 years old, is in the garage of Allie Hughes. Many people here would know his son, who was an orthopedic surgeon.
Right.
Watching election results come in. So it would, and Barbara Walther lived half a block away from us. So I didn't come to the political thing as a barefoot pilgrim. I had seen this around me growing up since I was 8, 9 years old.
Right.
And I've told you this, and it's a joke I tell people that they come in, you just heard me say it, but the people out here haven't. When someone comes to me and says they want to run for school board or they want to run for a city office like mayor or councilman, to a certain extent, where they want to run for county office, at least county office gets paid something. But anyway, my advice is, when you announce for the campaign, you're going to piss off half the people in town. And then when you get elected, you're going to piss off the other half the people in town, and you're going to do it for free. So my question is, do you really want to do this? And most people do it because they want to make a difference in their community. And I think that's what Brenda, she's obviously worked hard for downtown San Angelo for years. Mm-hmm. She and her husband, Ken. So I just admire people being willing to sacrifice and do it.
All right. I mean, you make $600 a month. I think it's what it is.
And many of them will tell you I spend more than that just driving around in the car and things. So
right.
it's
but you know, the things that Brenda's done that, you know, we sit there and criticize. We spent in the press. We spent all our time criticizing people in comments on Facebook or Twitter. They spend all their time criticizing, but we don't sit back and just think about what's happened, you know, over the last 4 or 5 years. I mean, for example, the downtown streetscape project. I mean, I remember when that thing launched back in 2015. It was Rick
Mm-hmm.
Weiss.
right.
He was one of the assistant city manager. It still is. He's the one. His little brainchild. You know, we can get all this tech. We can get $18 million in tech stock money, and all we have to do is come up with another 4 or 5 million more, and we can have this beautiful, you know, street fixed.
Exactly.
And then and of course, Chadburn used to be the old 87 going through town.
Yes.
And so the street lights are way too high because they were built to 1940s specifications for TxDOT or whatever TxDOT was back then.
Yeah.
And so all these things that have happened. I mean, that started before Brenda, but she's getting, you know, they say, well, the only reason we did this big project is because Brenda loves downtown. Well, so what?
So what? I love downtown. I mean, obviously, I was one of the people involved with the Performing Arts Center.
Right, SAPAC.
That started at Angelo Civic Theater like 17 years ago. Mm-hmm. And part of the reason that we wanted to do that, and it certainly evolved as studies came in, is that if we were able to establish a performing arts center and cultural thing on Chadburn, mm-hmm. and that would revitalize Chadburn Street.
The north side.
Yeah, and that's what's happening.
Right.
Yeah. And I have no problem with having a vital inner city being vital to the community.
Well, when you talk to, you know, when you listen to historians and people who are city planners, they talk about the living downtown and how the downtown of a city, that's the core. If the downtown's dead, the city's probably going to die pretty quickly.
Yes, I mean, I think that a vital downtown is emblematic of a healthy city.
Right, there you go. You just switched around my negative way to say it into a positive way to say it.
That's what I do for a living, Joe.
Well, you sitting over there, you have time to think about it. Yeah.
Yeah, well.
But anyway, the other thing that you're passionate about, and we're getting into Thanksgiving and the holidays and all that kind of stuff, and there's probably going to be some wine, maybe.
Extremely likely.
Yes. So let's talk about this. How did you write this wine column that comes out, what, daily? I mean, I'm subscribed to it. It comes out a lot.
Almost daily online, and then weekly in the newspapers around the country. I've been interested in wine, and wine's been part of my life and my family's life even before I was legally able
to
drink wine. I
Right.
mean, you can drink wine if it's in your family. And, you know, people ask about why wine, and I say, well, you know, I'm really not particularly into hard spirits, and in summertime I'll drink a beer,
Mm-hmm.
but
You won't drink a beer in the wintertime?
I will, but the key deal is I only have X number of alcohol units left to drink in my life.
Okay.
So I'm not going to spend it very much on beer and liquor. I'm going to spend it on wine because that's what I really enjoy.
All right.
And I love the intellectual elements of wine. There's intellectual elements of the other alcoholic beverages too. But if you talk about civilization has been built around wine and beer. Beer built the pyramids. Wine is a critical, vital element of many religions.
Right.
I mean, you and I are Catholics.
Right. Gotta drink the wine.
Gotta drink the wine. You know,
Right.
that's what, we celebrate that every Mass.
Right.
So, the answer is I always liked wine. And do you want me to go into a long story about this?
Well, tell me about how you got started with the. I'm really interested in how you're doing this online thing. I mean, you were for years in the local paper, and I guess you got syndicated through the Scripps papers,
Through Scripps and others too. I mean,
right? And then as newspapers died, you had to transition yourself and remake yourself.
sort of. I was putting stuff online from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
You know, my ad agency, we were online, and so probably almost from day one, I had at least a presence online. At the beginning, it was just Twitter,
Right.
and then very quickly we put up my webpage. So I've got 16 years of wine reviews on my webpage, and that was. I mean, as long as I produced this wine column,
Right.
why not put it? You know, it didn't cost me another 20 minutes of time to put it online,
Right.
and other people could see it and read it.
One of the things about the way you write your wine column that we've talked about before is you like to keep it short and concise. And
Absolutely.
and that seems to be the antithesis to a wine column. Like, you know, wine people like to just sit there and go on and on and on about how dry the wine is and all this kind of stuff. So you are the man who can write things in very concise sentences.
I try.
And so when you're tasting some kind of strange wine you never had before and you got to write a column about it, how do you start? Do you look at the label and say, well, the label looks good?
No, I pour it into the glass and I look and see what the color is and write that down. Then I swirl it to see what the aromas that are there, and then I taste it. And then I go online and see what other people have thought about it. Do I agree with them? You know, you can get 5 highly qualified wine critics. I mean, people that way above my pay grade in terms of, you know, their skill level. And there will be 5 different opinions. It's not like there's one right answer.
Right.
And
It's kind of like the opinions of Trump.
you can go into Trump. I'll leave that one alone.
Well, so you get 5 opinions of 5 different opinions of wine, and then what do you? I mean, what do you?
If you read particularly the wine reviews, the daily wine reviews, which is almost every day, I'm more interested in the backstory.
Okay.
If you know, this family's, I mean, particularly Italian wines and stuff, you know, this family's been making wine at this location since for 1,200 years.
Right.
You know,
Right.
16 generations. And I like to bring that out. Some others, there's a continuing a big movement in wine for sustainable farming and respect for, well, particularly in California now, for water conservation and avoidance of pesticides, and I like to tell that story, you know. So to me, to be honest, a lot of wine just is good wine, and I have no problem with it. But the story behind the the making of the wine is what makes it come alive to me more than just the wine. I mean, I get free wine all the time.
Because they want you to write about
They want me
their
to
wine.
write about their
Right.
wine. And it ranges from $10 bottles of wine to $250 bottles of wine. And, after a while, this is a really good $20 bottle of Cab. This is a really good $20 bottle of Cab. This is a really good $20 Cab Merlot blend. This is a good Merlot Cab blend.
It gets kind of repetitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now I want to say, okay, what's more of the story here? I mean,
Right.
there's there's one guy whose name I can't think of off the top of my head. He and his wife had a winery. They just sold it, but he was the head of Disney. So there's like, and
Was his name Iger?
no. There's another winemaker whose daughter is a relatively famous writer who writes for New Yorker magazine on a regular basis and still lives at the winery.
Right.
All of a sudden that's
a story.
That's a story.
Right. Right.
And many of them. Oh, there's one I particularly like is one in Paso Robles, and of course I'm sitting here with you, and I can't think of the name right off the top of my head because I'll think of it as soon as I stop trying to think of it, Joe. You know that.
Yeah.
Anyway, they were in the Middle East and Lebanon, I believe, and there's a civil war, and one of them is actually partially wounded. They moved to
The wine might
France.
have real blood in it.
No, they still weren't in. They weren't doing wine. The family was actually made furniture, and they moved to Provence in France. Moved across the Mediterranean Sea. Eventually, the two brothers came to California and went to school, and developed a software that's used by hospitals all over the world now as part of the medical infrastructure.
Right. Medical records kind of software.
Yeah. They then cashed in, and bought a winery in Paso Robles, bought land in Paso Robles, and now they make this really good wine. Now, to me, that's a human success story. These are people that were caught up in a civil war in the Middle East and
Got out of there.
got out of there, came to the United States, went to school at USC or something, invented software that's benefited all of mankind, cashed in, and now make Dow, D-A-O-U, I believe. You can buy it at Market Street.
D-A-O-U.
I believe so.
Dow Wine.
Dow Wines. That's their last name. It's also, for me, that's the American success story. We took people fleeing strife and civil war. They came here. They were smart enough and ambitious enough to get college degrees in engineering and then design software to benefit the entire. It's not just, we did something in California. I mean, they made worldwide and made a huge amount of money.
Right.
And then invested it in winery that makes great wine.
And the wine with it to you as a writer and as a storyteller.
Right.
The wine story sells the Dow wine.
Well, if you taste the Dow wine, you will enjoy it as wine. But when I know the rest of this story about how did these people
It makes
get
the wine richer.
Yeah, well, you can watch they have videos on their website, and you can tell that the main winemaker, one of the brothers, has a little slouch in part of his chin. That's a wound from a civil war in the Middle East. I mean, there's some depth there beyond just this is good wine. This is an American success story. Mm-hmm. This is the reason why I'm have no problem with immigrants. These are immigrants that came here and improved the world, and now they're selling you really good wine.
Okay, so we're coming up on Thanksgiving. A lot of people are wondering, where do I find where's the best places to find good wine in San Angelo, Texas? If you were out shopping for wine, you don't have to
I don't have to do that anymore.
But if you were to advise me, because no one sends me any free wine. In fact, I'll tell you this story. The last time I was Google had invited me and my wife, and we went to this conference at Google headquarters in San Francisco. And part of the deal is we did a Napa Valley tour with Google. It was kind of cool. And we went to this one winery that was in a bomb shelter. And on top of a hill in a bomb shelter. I don't know what used to be there, probably some kind of nuclear missile or something. But anyway, my wife loved the wine because she thought the bomb shelter was cool. So
well, actually, that's the reason they were in the bomb shelter, is it is cool. It's 55 degrees.
Yeah. And so she bought a case of wine, which cost an arm and a leg, but it was okay. We were there, but there with Google, you're supposed to spend an arm and a leg. So
yes.
Anyway, we come back to San Angelo, and the wine never arrives. I'm like, where in the heck is this wine? So I started getting kind of upset about this. I'm like, I spent so much money on this. And anyway, we called the winery in the bomb shelter back in California. They actually had phones in it. And they said, the reason why your wine has not arrived is because we don't ship when the temperature is over 85 degrees.
Exactly right.
And so what they do is they look at, the whole transit of where the wine goes, and if it's ever over 85 degrees, they're not going to ship it. So we had to wait until November to get wine that we ordered in June.
Yeah. I could have told you that's not an unusual situation.
Right.
They also will ship some with the little ice things that keep it cool, but they want you to get the best experience you possibly can.
Right.
And cooking in the back of a UPS van it's not the optimum thing for wine in the summertime.
So anyway, back to the original question.
All right.
If you were going to shop for wine for Thanksgiving in San Angelo, Texas, and you got till the end of the day to get it, where are you going to go? You can have multiple options.
Market Street has a nice wine selection. So does H-E-B. Vino Veritas is a wine store.
That's over in Stadium Lane.
Stadium Park, yeah.
Stadium Park.
Yeah. There's not. I would not get it at a Stripes convenience store. No.
Well, if you're gonna get it at Stripes, make sure it comes with the twist off top. That way you don't have to buy the bottle opener.
If I'm going to buy alcohol at Stripes, I'm buying beer.
What about the liquor stores? Do they have like Pinky's or?
Well, Pinky's at one time, and that's how I got into the wine column to start off with, as a matter of fact. Pinky's one time had probably the best wine selection in West Texas. Mm-hmm. They don't care about it. Mike Ellington sold it, and there's not. I mean, you can get wine there. I'm not knocking them, but
right.
They're not the.
They don't have the volume of selection that you would have at Market Street or H-E-B.
Yes, be similar. The deal is, all those places, they're basically what will turn. I've got to buy this bottle of wine. Mm-hmm. How quickly can I flip this thing into money?
Right. So they're not going to have a variety.
Well, there's
a deep variety.
Bigger cities and the way Pinky's used to be. Mike Ellington had it was a passion for him to have quality wine, and mm-hmm. he was successful enough that I can go buy this Italian wine, and if it sits on my shelf for 2 years before it sells, I can still say, you want this mm-hmm. Chianti or whatever, I got it.
It's kind of like the difference between, I'm going to give you a metaphor, like a hardware store when compared to Home Depot. A hardware store has to carry a one of everything, right? Because you walk in there with some strange gadget that came off your sink and you're trying to find the replacement, you're not going to find it at Home Depot probably. They're going to try to sell you a new sink,
Exactly.
right? But you go into like Ace Hardware and you say, "Here's my stem. Can you or Angelo Bolt, can you match this?" And they can match it. But to do that requires you to carry one of everything, not five of.
Also, for you to have a passion for the product. I mean, Mike Ellington had great wine because he likes great wine. The grocery store, first place, most of the time, grocery stores aren't selling wine. They're selling shelf space.
Right.
In other words,
if you have the marketing dollars as a winery or as a distributor, you
Republic or what they're doing is, and they control it. I mean, the grocery store quite often isn't even picking wine. They're saying, okay, we're going to give you 3 shelves, and you've got to come in and stock it. And so the only thing that matters to them is the turn. If this is some fancy, expensive wine that you're only going to sell 3 or 4 of them a year, they're not going to stock it.
Well, what about Vino Veritas has a depth of selection?
Yeah,
I mean, they have to. That's what they do.
That's what they do. Yeah.
Right.
I have no problems with Vino. They could probably come the closest, and then there's a few others. What is it? Raw, 1899 and stuff. They're still not the same as if you go to San Antonio or some bigger, but that's just economies of scale. I mean,
right.
I don't fault them for not having the depth of selection. They're doing as good as they can.
Right. Well, not enough people are reading your wine column and going in there and saying, "Hey, you need this wine from Dow because they're Lebanese refugees, and the guy has a war wound on his face."
So the answer to your question is anticipate it ahead of time. One of the best ways to get high quality wine is either be enrolled in some winery's wine club,
okay,
or buy it online. Texas is actually pretty progressive in terms of allowing shipping and stuff like that. So,
and of course we have Cristobal Winery,
yes,
down south of here. Good wine. Stories? You got any stories from Cristobal?
Well, I was close friends with the Vincents. He and I went to college together. My sister was in maid of honor in their wedding and stuff like that. So that's the backstory that goes way beyond
to the beginning
to when we were in college together. The Cristobal there's a Tempranillo that's pretty good. There are like many Texas wineries. They make wine. They probably make their money off being a wedding venue or a venue for events, or the two of them together.
Right.
But and there's a whole lot of Texas wineries that are in that deal. But
when I grew up in College Station, the Promised Land,
Messina-Hoff
was, and that was like the only winery in Texas. It seemed like,
There was a gigantic one out in Big Bend, and then there was the ones up around Lubbock. But yes.
And now, if you go to Fredericksburg, it's just littered with wineries all over the place, wineries and breweries.
The Hill Country AVA is the second largest visited AVA, American Viticultural Area, in the United States.
American Viticultural
Area.
AVA, Alpha Victor Alpha.
Yeah.
Right.
The only one that has more people coming to it is Napa, California.
Oh, wow.
So
we're moving up.
Well, what you get in Fredericksburg is San Antonio and Austin day trip. Even throw Houston in there, or Dallas Fort Worth is maybe a day trip, or at least an easy 3 hours, 4 hours. So you've got a huge population center. Almost all the grapes, however, to go into the wine at the winery come from high plains around Lubbock.
Really?
Yeah, 85%.
Wow. So they ought to just build all the wineries up in Lubbock.
Well, no, then you wouldn't have San Antonio and Austin on your next
Too far
door.
to drive.
Exactly, and not very exciting looking.
So they don't grow the grapes in the hill country. They grow them in Lubbock and ship them in.
They do grow some in the hill country, but by far, most of the grapes are grown between Brownfield and Lubbock. Wow. And there's people who go, what? How did Texas, Well, actually, they're in a really good shape. They're called the high plains because there are high plains. There are 3,000 to 4,500 feet elevation.
Right. And that's good for grapes?
Excellent for grapes.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's, Californians brag about they're on the side of a mountain that's 800 feet above sea level. Mm-hmm. We're 4,000 square feet.
Yeah, we're almost Colorado up there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so the several things happen. There's an element of a lot of sandy loam soil,
which is very fertile,
and also discourages certain plant diseases. The wind blows, and
does it blow? I love it. Yes.
Yeah, and that discourages mildew.
Right.
There's a thing called diurnal shift, which is a really big deal in wine, and that is it's 100 degrees in the day and it's 60 degrees at night, and that's an ideal situation for the 100-degree day ripens the grape, and the cool night restores acidity. It's kind of like the grapevines work real hard during the day and then get to sleep at nighttime.
And so that makes better, I guess, grape juice.
Yes, the fruitiness or the sweetness, that's created by the heat and the sun during the day. Acidity, which balances that, is created by the cool at night. So you used to grow cotton, now we grow grapes.
Interesting.
And
sandy loam and cotton and all that has always been a big part of the high plains, and
right.
Even the Delta of Mississippi. That's the Mississippi Delta is all sandy loam, and that's where a lot of the cotton is produced. But now it's grapes, at least in the high plains.
Well, one of the things that farmers recognize is grapes are the most lucrative agricultural crop that there is. I mean, just without, it's not even close.
But don't you have to have a lot of irrigation and a lot of water?
Well, they do drip irrigation. They got Ogallala aquifer underneath. I mean, if you can grow cotton, you can grow grapes. It'd probably be even easier to grow grapes than to grow cotton, to be honest with you.
Right.
And then grapes are, they are survivors, and they don't have big water needs. I mean, there's several wineries in Chile in the Atacama Desert or whatever. It's the driest place on earth.
Right.
No rainfall. I mean, like it rains once a year and then you get a quarter of an inch. About sort of like Mathis Field.
Where the rain gauge is, right?
But grapes are survivors, and so there are places in where the grape roots go down 25 to 50 feet into the soil seeking a water source.
So it's not like cotton where you plow them all up at the end of the season. You keep
you don't
rotate.
going. No, I mean, if you go to Lodi, California, which also has sandy soil, therefore phylloxera you get a lot of what they call old vine Zinfandels.
Old vine Infandel?
Zinfandel.
Oh, Zinfandel. Zinfandel.
Yeah, Zin.
Yeah.
A number of those vines are still happily producing grapes after 125 years.
So like trees. big
Yeah.
trees. Yeah.
Well, there's a vine in Europe, I don't, Yugoslavia or wherever, that's still producing vines. It's on the city street, and it's 450 years old.
All right, so out of this wine discussion,
Okay.
I've gotten some takeaways
All right.
for where hopefully you can find Dow wine somewhere.
I know that you can get it at Market Street.
So Market Street has Dow wine.
Yeah.
Check out In Vino Veritas also. 'Cause
Oh
they're
yeah,
local
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
And the number 2 is the Texas wine could be better than Napa Valley wine because we have Lubbock. Or maybe in 100 years will be better.
I wouldn't use better or worse. I would use both of them can produce good wine.
Gotcha.
It's
It's a different kind of wine. Or
Well-
I think the Lubbock story is more compelling. I mean, you're telling me stories matter.
okay. Well, there's some pretty compelling stories in California too. But
That's California.
if you were talking about Thanksgiving, I would, if you want recommendations, I would look into a Pinot Noir from Washington or Oregon.
Okay.
They do that really, really well.
And that's Pinot Noir. That's how it's spelled.
Yeah. I mean, it's black pine cone is what it, because the bunches are shaped like a pine cone.
Okay.
If you like,
And that's more of a red wine.
it is a red wine,
It is red wine.
but it's one of the lighter bodied, less tannic red wines. And it's just very versatile, and it works really well with turkey.
Gotcha.
If you're going to eat beef, then I would look at a California Cabernet Sauvignon, because that's going to be more tannic and heavier body, and be able to stand up to the fat that you've put on the beef and stuff like that. Chardonnay would also work. If you wanted to do Texas, I'd really look at Tempranillo.
Okay. Tempranillo.
Tempranillo. It's a Spanish grape. Well, it turns out that as we've experimented in Texas, the grapes that have done well are ones from southern Europe, from Spain and southern Italy.
Portugal.
Portugal's terrific values if you can find them.
Right.
Well, guess what? Here's the Earth. Draw a band across it. Here's Texas. There's Italy. There's Spain.
Right. Another reason why Lubbock wine should be better than California wine.
Well, you're not
Because
going to
you know San Francisco's way above in latitude. I mean, it's on I-80. We're on I-20.
Yeah. Actually, the key to the California wines are the big California wine production is between San Francisco and Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Napa's the elite thing, and their diurnal.
Well, they have the train in Napa. They don't have a train in Fresno.
What they also have in Napa and Sonoma is Pacific fog that rolls in, and that gives them the diurnal shift.
Gotcha.
But if you're drinking Lodi and Paso Robles,
if you're drinking Ernest and Julio Gallo, you're probably drinking some Fresno wine.
correct.
Or
Central Valley.
Merced, Modesto. that area.
Central Valley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Which is probably most of the rest of the food you're eating is coming from there
right.
too.
For the 1% to 2% on our audience that are vegans, what's a good vegan wine?
There's a bunch of them.
Oh no!
And they even no.
You mean vegans have more choices than the beef guys?
No, but there are many wines that now publicize the fact that they're vegan wines. One of the things that you do when you make wine is called fining, and that is to remove some of the to remove particulates in the wine to clarify the wine.
Right.
A classic way to clarify it is use egg whites.
Okay.
That means they're no longer vegan wines.
Because you aborted a chicken. I'm trying to get you to be the senior sage of central politics here.
they also now use a bentonite, a mineral,
Right.
to clarify the wine, and then they can put on there, well, the big things for winemakers is we didn't use any pesticides. We use natural predators, or you turn sheep and goats and ducks loose in the winery to eat the bugs and to keep the weeds down. You don't use any pesticides. You use minimum or no sulfur. And we used minerals instead of egg whites to clarify the wine. And they'll tell you if they go to that trouble that that's what they've done.
They have special labels on them, or is it just kind of,
It'll just be included in the deal.
what's a brand that does that?
Oh, it's many. And not only that, many brands will have, say they offer 12 different varieties of wine. And some of them will be vegan friendly and some of them won't. So, I mean, it's not the wine world is infinitely complicated. I mean,
No kidding. I'm trying to simplify it with my Lubbock. I'm promoting Lubbock.
Good luck on that, Joe. That's not how it works.
Same latitude as Spain and Italy.
Those grapes work, but you'll see wines that are Cabernet Sauvignon, and then many wineries will offer 3 different or more, and the cheapest ones will be the grapes that are still may be good wine, but they're not. They've culled out, and they've only preserved the top ones for their $50 bottle of wine, and then there's a $30 bottle of wine, and then there's a $15 bottle of wine. So it's. I would also stress that the price is only one of the. There's wines that's way overpriced, and the reason they did it is because people want to tell you, I spent $80 on this bottle of
it's
wine.
kind of like a dress. You want to buy an expensive dress, not the $15.99 dress.
Exactly.
Right.
But there's also plenty of wineries that. Why does it cost this much money?
Because they only got one plant that's making those grapes.
Or a small parcel of land.
Right.
A lot of quality winemakers they'll identify their wine by the plot of land that the grapes came from. And so you
Uncle Henry's red wine.
Joe's Vineyard, Mary's Vineyard, and they are next to each other, and they still taste different. I mean, that's the beauty of wine, is that it really reflects the land, the weather, the skill of the winemaker. It's not Coca-Cola.
Right. All right. So to learn more about your wine, because you know a lot about it, and to read your concise columns or your concise missives that you put out all the time, how do people find Gus Clemens on wine?
If you Google Gus Clemens on wine,
it comes up.
It comes up.
That's kind of like your link tree. Google Gus Clemens on wine, and you can subscribe to your Substack, or follow you on Twitter, or
all the above.
Like you on Facebook. But I think the Substack's the best, because it'll send you an email whenever you send an update, and it gives you every time you get an email, you get a new idea about.
Well, and also you will get a joke.
Oh no! Yeah, the jokes, dad jokes.
I started sticking those into the wine column years ago, and
they're subtle though.
I try to, I have to work at the damn jokes. I mean, it's not like people send me jokes and I adapt it and run them. But for instance, on Facebook, I run a wine review, and they're always going to be under 500 words. Most of the time, they're under 400 words. The columns are always less than 450 words complete. Anyway, I run the review. Facebook gives you the metrics, and 500 or 1,000 people see it and comment. I've got as many as 25 and 30,000 people commenting or seeing the jokes.
On jokes, there you go. He's a treasure for the San Angelo area. He wrote the book Concho Country. It's available down at the Cactus Bookstore. Old Felton Cochran still has a small, I think he probably has like 3 or 4 of them left, but if you're interested in
I've
it,
got more.
It's a good book, or you can message Gus on, after you Google Gus Clemens online, you can message him to get a copy of it. This is I think, if you want to know anything that happened in the Concho Valley prior to 1986, this is the book to look at. You want to have the context. But anyway, thank you for being on our show today.
Happy to be here, Joe.
All right.
By the way, he won't tell you this, but I was one of the first people to accept Joe when he came to San Angelo.
Nobody wanted to accept me. They wanted to run me out of town.
Yep, and I didn't. He shared that story with me many times. He said, there's only 2 or 3 people that would even talk to me, and you were one of them. And I've regretted that ever since. But
well, what you used to tell people when we first started San Angelo Live was, look, quit complaining about him. You spent your tax dollars training me to be a bomber pilot.
Yeah.
And all he's doing is dropping bombs. He's doing what you trained him to do. But anyway, Gus, thank you for coming on our show.
Sure.
Back to y'all.
For more than 25 years, Carpetech has been serving our customers and communities with floor care and emergency restoration services. I'm Cade Simmons. Thank you for welcoming Carpetech and my family to the Concho Valley. We look forward to serving you.
And that's news, weather, and sports. Thanks for joining us here at San Angelo Live. For all of us, happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time.